America, our nation, is not founded on racism and slavery. Our nation was originally founded upon a Christian covenant and Christian principles. And I would encourage people to look up Jamestown versus Plymouth and look at the two different kind of ideologies associated with those two places. We don't have time to get into it today, and I have a million other questions I'd love to chat with you about, but I'm just curious, in our present setting, where do you think this kind of modern day conversation, the kind of spillover of critical race theory from the academy into the public square, where is it really coming from? Because some people might naively believe that it has to do with George Floyd and what took place there. But what is it about our present setting, about 2020, that is causing people to, especially Christians, to pick up critical race theory and to start to entertain it as a useful analytical tool, as divisive as it is at face value? It's almost boggling to the mind to me. And I spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I'm wondering if you have any theories as to why this kind of racial reckoning, they want to call it, is happening right now in America when we have made an amazing amount of progress.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with Marxist professors in the different schools. I mean, unfortunately, the schools in America have been so influenced in the last couple decades by elitists who frankly believe in Marxism. I mean, when you look at the polls of, let's say, how much professors vote for the Democrat candidate versus the Republican candidate, I mean, it's just shocking. I mean, it's almost as bad as the media, members of the media, the Washington press score.
Yeah, you'll get a kick out of this statistic. There's like 5% of professors in academy are like conservative.
There's that 5%. Many? 5%? Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that it's that high. And a lot of these schools originally were Christian, and Harvard's original motto in Latin was truth for Christ and the church. It was founded by the Puritans, said John Winthrop, that I mentioned earlier. But people like that, men like that founded it for the glory of God and basically to train ministers, knowing that the present ministers would one day die. And so they dreaded leaving an illiterate ministry once they were in the dust. And yet today you have, if you were a born again Christian, it would be very difficult to even get tenure or maybe even get a job in the first place, much less get tenure. I know in a case of, some professors, they have been Christian and then essentially they've been drummed out. Even if they had tenure, they've been essentially drummed out from their position. So really it starts in the schools, and it has started in the schools in the last. So I think in many ways we're reaping, though, today, why this reckoning today, we're reaping the bad teaching that really got strongholds initially in the 60s and 70s. And again, so much of this has to do with Karl Marx. Yeah. In fact, there's a guy that used to be the president of the Young Socialists, and then he became conservative and doesn't agree with communism and socialism. And he wrote a wonderful book. His name is Joshua Muravchik. And the book is called Heaven on Earth. And it's just basically a history of socialism and communism. It's a terrific book. Everybody should get that, Heaven on Earth. But anyway, Joshua Muravchik said in an interview for us for Coral Ridge Ministries, D. James Kennedy Ministries, he said this about 10 years ago, he said, Marxism has been dying out, in many of the different countries around the world, but it's not dying out in the academy. And of course, now he said that in 2010. Since then, we've seen, unfortunately, the rise of communist ideas in Venezuela, proving once again that communism doesn't work. Sure. It took the richest country of Latin America and has now made it into a basket case. Those poor people, they can barely feed themselves, feed their families. Their neighboring countries, literally have armed guards or whatever to prevent people from Venezuela fleeing the communist country of Venezuela. You know what they call communist countries? The workers' paradise. It's such what a crock. I know a guy.
It's the totalitarian dictator's paradise.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, that's true. It's those dictatorships do really, really well for the ones in power, but for the regular person, it doesn't do well at all. The lady in one of the key founders of Black Lives Matters, and I guess she herself is no longer a part of it, but Patrice Cullors, Dr. Paul Kanger, whom I mentioned earlier, he wrote a column about it. We just talked about it recently on a radio segment I did. And she's the one that bought out all those real estate, homes. So here she is, a Marxist, and saying what we need is revolution, and then she gets all these donations from the corporations.
She hates capitalism
around and buys all these houses. It's the American way. Bernie Sanders has become a millionaire through his, anti-social or
have you heard this? BLM stands for buy larger mansions.
Pardon me?
Have you heard this? BLM stands for buy larger mansions. There was a meme.
No. That's
Yeah.
And of course, I like my good friend, Dr. Michael Brown, where he says, of course, Black Lives matters, but the organization itself, leaves something to be desired.
100%. So I think that's great. I think it's an academy thing. Just a little bit of background on me. I went to a Christian grad school, and it was there where I first kind of became aware of this stuff. And this is back in 2010. And they were teaching courses, and I laugh at it now, but then I was just scratching my head, and I was like, because I had never seen this stuff before, but they were teaching courses on theology and Karl Marx and how those two things are integrated with each other. Now, I'm not going to name the school just because I don't care, but needless to say, I was in a traditional Christian school learning about Karl Marx and how he is beneficial and useful for Christians in our work in theology. So needless to say, I definitely think the academy has a lot of blame to bear. I believe we are seeing the grandchildren, I'd say at this point, of postmodernism kind of proliferate, and now it's starting to have an impact in society, and we're starting to understand the just lunacy of postmodernism. But also think this, at the same time, there's another stream running concurrently with it. And that stream is that the West is moving further and further away from Christianity. Absolutely. We are officially a post-Christian nation now. And as that happens, not only are we undermining the foundation that we stand on in terms of the founding of our country, the real founding of our country, but we're also unearthing the foundation of ethical principles and virtues that we were founded on. And what's happening as that foundation is removed underneath our feet is we realize that we're living on sinking sand. And I believe people of my generation and a little bit younger are grasping for meaning and purpose and life and understanding of the world around them in the wake of a post-Christian nation. And they're finding that they're grasping at things that really cannot sustain them.
You can catch brand new episodes of Indie Thinker with Reed Huberman every Monday, and weekly bonus episodes to keep you thinking throughout the week. But you have to subscribe and click the bell to be notified when new episodes drop. If you enjoy this content, make sure to like this video and share it with friends.